Movies and Martinis celebrates women and diversity in the entertainment world
by ranking trending movies, shows, and books.
With two completely different perspectives and ranked by delicious martinis.
Listen to find out how many martinis we felt it was worth.
And learn about the women who have written, performed, and/or directed in everything we have rated.
A new episode is available every Thursday on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube. What's up, everyone? Welcome to our podcast. I'm Priya.
And I'm Mercy. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Priya, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I've missed you. I haven't seen you in way too long.
I know, right? Between recordings, like you're traveling, I'm doing stuff.
I know. I just got off a flight 2 days ago, and I get on another flight on Sunday.
Awesome. So, now, if you guys haven't realized, we have somebody else in the frame, which is right there.
Here, this is like the Brady Bunch.
And this is our third episode of Books and Martinis, a special edition, special episode of Movies and Martinis, books that we think that would be great on film. And we'd like to welcome our amazing author, Jessica Disciacca. She is
Hi, Jessica. Welcome.
And she is the author of Awakening the Dark Throne. So thank you for joining us today for this amazing, amazing session. We can't wait to get into the nitty gritty because this book left us on a cliffhanger.
It did.
So, I mean, technically you don't have to give any spoilers. I know you're working on book 2, so you don't have to give any spoilers, but if you want to share anything, it's fine. So we'll put a little spoiler alert right here.
I love spoilers.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
All right. So why don't we kick it off? Why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So hello, everyone. Like Priya said, my name is Jessica Disciacca, and I am a debut author. My first book series is The Dark Throne. Book 1 is Awakening the Dark Throne, and that was released April 2nd. You can get it at any location on the web, anywhere you shop. So I am locally born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. I am a second-generation born Italian-American and very proud of my culture. And so that actually goes into a lot of my books coming up, just my style of writing and the subject matters that I choose, historical pieces I choose to throw in there. So I started writing when I was 16 years old. Actually, after I read Twilight, I kind of got inspired by that. And it cracks me up because now looking back and rereading Twilight, I'm like, wow, that was so definitely YA compared to what I read now. But yeah, I mean, I've always loved reading. I was reading Anne Rice and, Vampire Lestat and all that. Like at 12 years old, very inappropriate for that age, but fell in love with sci-fi fantasy. Star Wars is like my niche. My dad was a huge Star Wars fan. I was his little girl. And so, just kind of dove into that world. So as, time progressed and whatnot, I had to go to college and I was like, well, writing really isn't going to, be able to keep me, with the lights on and the food in the fridge.
Bills paid.
Yes, exactly. And so I had to pick like a realistic dream. I guess you can call it with the quotes around it.
Yeah.
So I went to school. I went to the Kansas City Art Institute and I got my bachelor's in fine arts. I also have my bachelor's in communications, business, English, and education.
Wow, you're busy.
Yes, very busy, very busy.
She likes school.
And then I started teaching elementary school and I went back to get my master's in educational leadership as well. So I do have that from Northwest, and I'm currently teaching at a middle school at my alma mater, Park Hill School District. So I'm very happy about that. And as far as my personal life goes, I am married to a producer director here in Kansas City. He works for Strange Music. So if you guys know who Tech Nine is. Ooh. Yeah, so he does all those videos and whatnot. And like Jelly Roll is really famous right now. He was signed with Strange Music beforehand. So
we're name dropping now. Jelly
yeah, I know.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, just kind of connecting, how everything rolls. So yeah, he's also Italian. So I guess the culture thing is really what kind of connected us. And I have 2 beautiful little girls, Aurora and Freya. Aurora's 7 and Freya is 5. So very keeping me busy on my toes. I feel like I have 7 jobs right now with all these book launches, trying to get swag out the door, building websites and going on tours and whatnot. So it's very busy, very hectic over it this way, but I love it. And I'm hoping that eventually this writing career will take off and I'll be able just to do this full time because I've never had any type of satisfaction that I have, when I'm writing, in the middle of writing and when I've actually finished a book that I'm proud about and I'm ready to share it with the world. So
that's fantastic. Congrats. I have 3 little girls that are all adults now. But at one point, my 3 girls were 2.5 years apart. So I feel your pain.
No, I love it. Like
they will be your best friends ever. They're amazing.
I know. That's my favorite thing about being a mom to those two, because like my daughter just had a music recital 2 days ago, and her little sister's like, where's she? And my little 5-year-old, so she's standing up in her laps and she sees her and she's like, Sissy, go Sissy. I mean, she's like the biggest cheerleader.
Yeah, so that means everything. Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing. And so I'm going to be straight and full disclosure right off the bat. I'm not into fantasy. Priya and I are complete opposites. It's just, opposites. Like complete. Like
I'm surprised we're both wearing black right now.
I was just going to say the same exact thing. And so when we released our podcast, it was because we're so different. So we have different tastes, different point of views, and we kind of clash in that, and we'll have two perspectives. But when it came to your book, which I was kind of hesitant about starting, thinking like, oh my God, this is not my kind of book. Priya, we got to talk about this. Like, I'll read some books and you read some books, because this is like not up my alley. But we told Jessica we were going to read it, so I'm just going to like do it. And within 24 hours, I was done. I mean, I was cooking, I was doing everything, and I could not put it down. It was amazing. And I just want to share what a great job you did with just keeping the reader completely engaged. The characters were, after I read it, I could still feel the characters with me. I was still in the story. And
that's
that
what
happens.
You want
but it doesn't happen as often as you think, right? You buy all these books that are all the hype, and you don't get that. And then all of a sudden, here's a book, it's just coming out, and it was all the hype. It's amazing, and congratulations. I'm really excited about it. I didn't realize when I read it that there will be 5 in your series.
Yes.
So that's a huge commitment. So kudos to you on that. Again, that's 5 is a lot. That's wonderful. And I also saw that you had a teaser for the name of your second book. So I don't know where you're at with that, but I was kind of learning about you. And if our listeners want to hear or learn more about her, a great source would be Instagram. You could go to all of her posts,
for sure,
and it shows everything, the characters, what they look like, the pictures, the music. I mean, it was a great way to wrap every character and everything about them. So that was fantastic. Priya, you want to hit her with the first question?
Sure. Yeah. So why don't you tell us about your book and what inspired you to write it?
Sure. So this is the Dark Throne series, and this is Awakening the Dark Throne is the first one. So that little teaser that she was referring to, I posted like Awakening the ... And I always love it when, especially after people have read, I always love it to get their feedback on it. So just to let you know, yes, like you guys said, it is a 5-book series. I already have 1 through 3 completely finished. 4 is halfway done. I did take a step back because I was feeling like I needed just to like stop and reevaluate, because I was just blowing through them. And I really wanted to like commit all my heart to it and like really be passionate about a project when I'm in it, because I feel like if I'm not passionate, then the reader's not going to feel that. So I actually switched gears and started writing another series called Witches of Trevora. Yeah, so that's coming out in May. So that's a 3-book series with a prequel. So yeah, so we're rolling with that. But
ambitious.
Huh?
Ambitious.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I remember watching an interview with Stephen King, and he's like, once I start writing, I can't stop. And, I just have to, I sit there for a week and I do it. And that I am a compulsive writer. Like my husband knows when I'm in the zone, he's like, nope, I don't got a wife for a week. The characters, like I just keep saying they won't shut up until they're on the page.
That's great.
So yeah, that's kind of how those 3 kind of came about real fast. But yeah, so this is actually not the first full series I've written. I actually wrote another series that's basically sci-fi, and sci-fi takes a lot more dedication because you're world building completely from the ground up, whereas fantasy already has a foundation put in place. So for example, if I say elf, you guys are going to think most likely, tall, lean, structured, short, long hair, beautiful, immortal,
like Legolas from Lord of the Rings. That's what I kept on imagining.
Yes, exactly. Same thing like with dragon. Like these are all these elements are already built and already created. And so fantasy is a little bit easier. So back in 2019, after I had just had my second little girl, I kind of felt empty. I was like, I'm missing something in my life. So I picked up my laptop and I just started writing. And I had not, discovered, I haven't researched anything about what it was to be published at all. I just wrote. And so by the time I got done with my first manuscript of the Morn series, book 1, and that's another series I'm hoping to touch base back with in a couple years, but I looked at it, it was 319,000 words, and that was book 1. So yeah. So after research, I realized that, a publisher, especially for a debut author, only wants 90,000 words. Went back and edited it, chopped about 100 words out. And I was like, oh gosh, no. So we had to put it aside. I was like, I got to take a break. And then COVID hit. And I think it was April. I remember it was April of 2020. And there was this little coffee shop on a historic square that was still open. And so I just kind of took the day for myself, and I sat in that coffee shop from morning to night, and I just started writing. And I wrote that first book, Awakening the Dark Throne, in a week. And the characters just started developing, and I have always been like a huge fan of mythology and history. And I love it when authors incorporate those little tidbits into what I'm reading. And so I really did a deep dive, and this is from like all kinds of websites. I actually pulled from actual Norse mythology. So for example, in my book, the elves are referred to as alfar. And alfar is the original term that like the Vikings and all of that gave elves. It was not, elves didn't come about until Christians kind of took over that, region.
I didn't know that. I was like, oh, what a cool name, a different name to call them.
Yeah. I know. I even had somebody like in my reviews was like, oh, she's trying to be fancy with pulling out a name. I'm like, no, that's actually their name. Like, I'm not being fancy, But yeah, so I did that. I pulled a lot of like, there's a red eagle moment. And if you guys know what that is, it's when like the Vikings used to basically get like Christian monks and stuff like that and cut their backs open and pull out their ribs. So so they look like angels. So it's mocking Christianity. So I incorporated stuff like that into it, things that actually occurred. And the creation of an alfar and what it was in Phagra, the god. So I incorporate all that. And then I also did like a cross reference of really popular platforms like D&D and things of that nature that kind of mess with that world, and kind of took some theories, kind of bits and pieces that I enjoyed as far as, separating the courts into dark and light and what made them dark and light, and kind of fleshing all that out. So once I kind of had that whole world structure together, then I also started incorporating, you're going to see through, especially in book 4 and 5, you are going to see creatures from every mythology, every nationality, every time frame. So this is like a big cluster when the rifts start.
Are you dropping like a little Easter egg?
Yes, I am. Like right now in book 4, I'm writing about Valkyries, and so you're going to see all kinds of stuff from
I love it.
Roman, Asian, all of that, all across the platform. So I'm super excited because I love researching. And then I did in college, I took a religious studies course, and I kind of became obsessed about it. I'm Christian. And so I was always like, why do I believe in why I believe, especially when I got older and started being able to question things and whatnot. And I wanted to be able to explain why I believed it. So I took a religious studies class, and I've incorporated a lot of that into it as well. So you're going to see references from the Bible. You're going to see references from other religions. You're going to hear.
Do you feel that that's what inspired you? Damn, Bentley.
No, honestly, like my brain is, I live in a fantasy realm half the time. I'm not gonna lie. So like even when I was little, like when I couldn't sleep, I would like imagine myself in a Star Wars theme and like play it through like a movie. And so I think that drives a lot of, I guess, my kind of focus is religion, because my next book, Witches of Truer, it has a lot of religion in it, and we focus more on the Wiccan and the Christianity, specifically Catholicism, which is funny because I'm not technically Catholic. I identify as non-denominational, but it's one of the oldest religions, and so like I took a lot of it from there, and biblical stories, biblical characters. So I definitely would say that it drives a lot of my narrative. For my inspiration, I would say it's more of my head being crazy and wanting something else magical out there besides what we actually live in. So I wrote the first book, automatically dove into the second because I could not stop. I created our, I guess one of our fan favorites so far, Arundel, into the book, and I really wanted to focus on him a lot more. So book 2, you're gonna see a lot more.
Yes, because it ended with oh snap.
Yes. I did that, but also too, something that I really wanted to incorporate in this book, and this is why I feel it falls more into the darker fantasy side instead of fantasy. So, and I'm going to, name drop, because my book has been compared to A Court of Thorns and Roses a lot.
Yes, I was going to say that because
it has. Yes. And I love Sarah J. Maas. Like her second book of that, A Court of Thorns and Roses, Mist and Fury, is one of my all-time favorites. But the thing that I feel like, again, people are like, oh, and I've had some, reviewers be like, oh, she's just copying. And once you get into the book, I think there's 2 elements that are copied. And one is, I guess I use an elf form, even though she never refers to hers as elf. Hers are fae.
Yeah.
Okay. And then 2, I have a protective barrier around the humans, which I later described that, basically they were keeping them there because they're protecting their cattle from being eaten. So it really wasn't a protection for them. It was selfishness for the Alfar to keep their works, their work force safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, they're, I don't know, I'm trying to say, I look at hers, and even though she does have a lot of pivotal, especially like in her Throne of Glass series, she has a lot of heart-wrenching, torture-y kind of things that the characters go through. Mine are more explicit, I guess, and vivid. And so I really wanted to be able to create characters that others actually connected with. And my dedication in the front of the book, I'm just going to read it now. It says, "For those who found their power and strength in the darkest of nights." And that really is just something to kind of hone in on, because I feel like authors put themselves in these books. And I know I have gone through a lot of struggles and a lot of things that, somebody shouldn't have gone through. And it was, kind of forced on me. It wasn't my choice. And it was a matter of me, turning that situation into my power instead of letting that destroy me. And so you really see that main character, Genevieve, go through that throughout the whole entire process. And I'm not explicit a whole lot, but what she's going through, because I'm telling you how she's feeling. And I'm pulling from, things that I have felt in situations similar to hers and what's going on. And so even with Arundel, I mean, the character that you're going to get to see, he's not necessarily this nice, fun guy. He's still going to do things that you're going to be like, oh no, do I really like him? Because
no.
did that,
Oh, okay. So let's pause for a second, because Sarah J. Maas, let's back up there with her a little bit, because she was labeled by Forbes as a #1 best-selling author of 2024 so far in the entire world. So kudos to you if people are comparing you to this powerhouse, because that says something. And #2, Arundel, reminds me of Rizan in Sarah J. Maas's books. So Mercy hasn't read Sarah J. Maas's books. But Mercy, I was obsessed with these books last summer. I always talk about it online. I don't know if you're paying attention, but
I do. I am paying attention. I hear all about it, and a lot of my book friends are obsessed with it, and my son-in-laws love it. So I'm familiar with it. It's not what I enjoy reading. Although, again, exception to Jessica, because that was amazing.
Yes. So he reminded me of Rizan, and I was like, oh, he swooped in like Rizan did in the beginning of Sarah's first book. So I was expecting it to be like, okay, now she's gonna leave Galen. I was gonna say G&G. In my mind, I'm like G&G. Galen, and go with the right person, because she's really from the Dark Court, right? So spoiler alert, everybody, she's really from the Dark Court.
Killed it, Priya.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, she's dropping all these Easter eggs.
It's all good. I like hints. Let's do this.
Okay. So with that said, who are your favorite characters?
I was just gonna ask.
Okay.
So there is another character that you are going to meet in book 3. Well, you meet her in book 2, but you don't hear from her voice until book 3, and her name's Ebony.
Okay.
And I'm not going to spoil anything because her story is so good, but I'm trying not to. But she is almost the female equivalent of Arundel. And so, and she's I will give you this, because you're going to learn this very quickly in book 2, but she is a part of his family. And so,
whose family?
Arundel's, like he has basically put together like a family of like riffraffs that basically needed somewhere to kind of needed a platform to stand on. So you'll meet her in book 2. And at first you don't like her because there's conflict between her and Jen. And then as soon as you start hearing from her, like she has a another very heart-wrenching story. But so side note, I'm going to spoil it right here because I can't wait. And you're not going to know this until book 3. But she starts having something with Levos. And so it kind of like rolls. Yeah.
And the best friend.
Yes. And so like, I love the way that she develops, and she's another powerhouse where she's ungodly, powerful. And it's just a matter of getting through her trauma in order to, realize that she's worthy of, what love is, and, the commitment that somebody is going to offer her. So that I do love her. Supporting character would definitely be Otar. He cracks me up in book 2. Like, and it's so funny because I say that because I wrote him, but like legit, like I didn't write him. Like he's in my head. Like I can see him bouncing around.
He's totally wonky. Like there's a screw loose.
And you only get to hear his voice in the last 2 chapters of this book. But in book 2, like he is so funny. Like I don't know, like I always have to read it. It's great, but yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite supporting characters for sure. And then of course Levos. I mean, he's just the best friend that you want to have. And I love it because at first people were like, okay, is he gay? And I'm like, no. And then people are like, okay, is he in love with Jen?
I totally thought that he was going to be the gay bestie, but
yeah, he's definitely no, he's the freak for sure. If we're getting our drift with the smut answers for sure. So yeah, and it kind of matches Ebony's personality. But I mean, I do love Arundel, of course. He's not, and I am attracted to tall, dark, and handsome, mysterious. So it cracks me up because I'm looking at all my books. I'm like, oh, they always end up with a tall, dark, and handsome. The lighter one never wins. But he's not. I would say like once you start getting to know him in book 2, I think he talks with the formality of Rhysand that we're used to seeing in Sarah J. Maas's books. But I feel like the difference a lot is with Rhysand is I feel like even though he was acting, if you read Sarah J. Maas, he was acting as a villain, he was still wholeheartedly good. And with Arundel, he's not. He has this kind of this darker side that because he's been raised. I mean, and I stick true to it. The Dark Court got their reputation for a reason. So you're going to see, sacrifices, and you're going to see things that Genevieve is like trying to process because she's like, I can't do, and he's there and he kind of ends up, looking at himself because of her influence because they become really good friends. And through this whole entire thing, and they both learn a lot from each other, but he kind of looks at himself. But again, there's situational plots in the book where he is still making poor decisions, even after, he kind of finds out where his heart lies and what he wants out of life. And so, and again, he was raised, like you're going to kind of get his backstory as well, but he was born a bastard and he was basically thrown in the gutter as soon as he was born. So he doesn't have that like mature platform that Rhysand had. And also too, he fails a lot, which I love in characters because I don't connect to characters that always win. That's not realistic to me. And so he fails a lot. He's not the strongest. He's not the, richest. He's not the slyest, but at the same time, he uses his mind, and his mind is his biggest, weapon in this kind of controversy that he finds himself in. And so it's a matter of how he's going to outsmart him. And he surrounds himself with people as well who are strong in the areas that he's not, which his found family, you will kind of learn about more about each of them and hear from some of their voices throughout the book.
What advice would you give other writers?
Stop.
Okay.
Yeah, like
that's excellent advice.
Yeah, I mean, I was, and like even then, I'm with a smaller publishing house too, but like I was ready. I think September, October, I picked up the torch again because I'd already had 3 books out of the series written. And I started editing. I'd already gotten a professional editor from this first one, and I started querying. I've been querying since 2020, and it's a million rejection letters, and it's just because you have to connect with that one person that's going to be like, yep, I love this book and I'm ready to talk about it and blow it up. And again, it's one person out of this field, this ocean of thousands of agents. And so I was querying. And then November came around. I was like, screw it. I want to self-publish. Self-publishing is the way to go anyways. I'd met a lot of authors that make a lot of money self-publishing. Hired a graphic design artist, got my cover going. And then January 3rd, I get an email and was like, we are interested in your book. We are a, Austrian house press, and I would like to sit down with you and meet. And so 2 weeks later, after the lawyers looked over the paperwork, I was signed, and now I'm having, 8 books.
My God.
5 years going. Yeah. So
isn't that crazy?
Total inspiration for you, Priya.
Yeah, total inspiration. How many query letters did you submit?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know.
Do you remember?
Like there were so many, and I hate querying. That was like the worst part of writing because everybody wants something different. And then like once in a while they would be like, oh, add your theme song. I'm like, my theme song? What are you gonna do? Listen to this theme song?
I've seen that.
I'm like, while you're reading it, like, so then you have to be like, okay, this needs to be clever. You were like overthink it. And then some of them are like, they want really formal, some of them want playful, some of them want you to go stalk them beforehand, some of them like think that's so repulsive. So it's just like legit, you have to go stalk people. You have to, like, I don't know how many times I went through Twitter, like, researching all these people and trying to figure out what they liked if my book would be a good fit. So it's exhausting. And
it's hit or miss. And sci-fi, because of Sarah J. Maas, I feel like it's a very competitive space right now. And they want that, these agents want that book, just like Sarah J. Maas's books. They want that book. So I feel like it's kind of unfair for all the sci-fi fantasy writers that that's what they're looking for because of the competitive
that they're comparing. Sure.
Yeah. And you can't, Sarah, she even like, I did another podcast a couple weeks ago where they asked me like, oh, are all the worlds going to connect between your books? I'm like, no, like, that's not my that's not my drift. Like, I mean, maybe down the road if I, were to create another one, but right now, no. Each of I have 3 series, that I'm definitely dedicated, and each 3 have their own worlds. They have their own premise, own characters that don't overlap. And she's brilliant in the way that she did that, because we just found that out. The last book that she released from Crescent City, or the second, the Sky and Breath that she released. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things to where I feel like it's a double-edged sword, because like my publisher said, he goes, the industry right now is you can't publish enough of this type of book because people are craving it. Like they want that hangover antidote for Sarah J. Maas. But at the same time, like, again, I wanted mine definitely to stand on its own. And so I feel like that darker element and that connection to history kind of puts it in a little bit of a different category, even though you're dealing with the same type of creature, I guess you could say, but again, different type of situational drama that they end up going through. And then the incorporation of actual cultures within our world and what we have, all heard of, and not like I'm going to put this in here, but like, the Kraken, like everybody knows what that is and things like that. So seeing creatures like that and of that nature and of that genre incorporated into something like this is going to kind of set it over into a different, platform, I feel like, or I hope at least.
I love it. I love it.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so if anyone wanted to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
Yes. So I just launched a website today, so I'm still medding with that, but it's jessicaandisciacca.com, or I love Instagram and TikTok. So on Instagram, I'm author Jessica Disciacca, and on Instagram, I'm just on Instagram, I'm author Jessica Disciacca, and on TikTok, I'm Jessica Disciacca. So.
Okay. Awesome. And I love how responsive you are. Sorry, Mercy. I love how responsive you are on Instagram. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Thank you for that. Because some authors are just like,
no, I don't want to talk to you. Like, give it to me. Like, I'm ready. That's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because I love talking about books. And I was like, let me give somebody, something to talk about. Let's, and it's so hard because, like I said, like, Witches of Treacherous is another one. I posted like 2 days ago, I think, a quote from the second book, and the first book's not released, and people are like, what are you doing to me? And I'm like, I just can't help it.
Totally messing with people.
I saw that.
Yes. And this podcast, this episode, you dropped so many Easter eggs.
I did.
I love that.
But I'm confident because there's so much more. Like, you're going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, even though, like, we love us and things like that, so you kind of know where his direction's going. There's so much more that you're going to be like, oh, no. Like, and realistic, there's people that you're going to fall in love with that die and they don't come back, And so it has to be realistic, because realistically, not everybody goes to war and comes home.
I know. And is there anything special you want our listeners to know about either you or the series or anything? It's your platform. What would you like to share with the listeners?
I mean,
think about it like the last question in that YouTube show, Hot Wings. And you have like the platform after you've eaten the hottest wing.
Yes. So, I mean, I don't know. So I would say, like, just I'm a go-getter. And I am ready to put all my effort into these series and get them going. Like, I want, I don't want Hulu or anything like else, touching this book. I want HBO, because that's what it needs.
Yes.
In order to get.
And who would you see when you think about your book? Who do you see playing the lead role?
Genevieve.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, like,
you've thought about this. Come on.
I just posted these 2 characters because you guys follow me on Instagram.
Yes. Say it.
No, Henry Cavill. Especially because. Yeah, with Galen, I love Henry Cavill, and especially because, like, and it was so funny because I wrote this book before Witcher released, and I knew about the game Witcher, but I was never into it. And then Witcher released after I wrote Galen, and I was like, well, there he is. Like, here you go. There
he is.
Yeah, and so him for sure. And then I just stumbled upon, I posted him on Instagram. I think his name's Tyler James, and he's a kind of TikTok, Instagram guy, and he kind of does all the voiceovers. And it's so funny because people are like, oh, I can see you as Rhysand too. But yeah, he's another one who I could see as Arundel. And Genevieve, I don't know, because it's kind of hard sometimes because I picture her as myself, and so to kind of pass that
I see the resemblance.
Yeah. And so kind of to pass that torch is kind of hard. But yeah, Love Us is another one where I've had a couple of different, thoughts. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I would have to kind of sit down, and as this kind of gets going and you start meeting more characters, I'll put something together. But
okay,
right now,
and make sure you invite us to the premiere.
I will, for sure.
Yeah,
so yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, this one I feel like this one would do better as a movie, whereas no, this one would do better as a series. Whereas my other one, which is Treacherous, would be better as a 3-part movie.
You need 5 seasons. If you're doing 5 books, you need 5 seasons.
There you go. We'll do it like Outlander. There you go. keep rolling them out.
Exactly.
I love that. I loved your book. So I appreciate your sharing it with us before it was even out. We felt honored and it was really worth reading.
Thank
So,
you.
Yes. Yeah.
thank
So
you.
thank you so much for being our guest today. Our listeners and viewers, make sure you check out Jessica's book. It's available and on Amazon, on her website. Like, share, and follow. Follow her on Instagram, and we'll put the information in the summary below this post and below the video. And subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching and listening.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Yes. Thank you, Jessica. And thank you, listeners. We will
Thank you
talk
so
to
much.
everybody the next one. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.